Welcome back to our end of the year episode for Do Tell Relationship Podcast. I'm your host, Nina Westbrook, and today we're going to switch things up and do things a little differently. I have been reflecting over the course of the last month or so on all of the incredible moments that we've had on this year's podcast, from having several GOATs on the show in their respective fields, whether we're talking about Asia Wilson or Russell Westbrook or Ron Robinson and Melody Ehsani. There's been so many. How about Sinead Bovell? Oh my goodness, you guys, I feel so fortunate to have had so many wonderful conversations with a lot of our guests this season. I hope you guys really enjoyed these conversations as much as I did, but today we're gonna go back and take a look at some of my favorite moments, and why not start with Russell Westbrook. In my second podcast conversation with Russell, we dug even deeper. Russell opened up about growth, identity, and what it means to evolve, both personally and professionally. But the moment that you all seemed to like the most was when Russell shared that he keeps notes in his phone of all the things I say to him that he finds interesting. Here's a look at that. Where's your list of things? Can you pull your phone out and read some of the things?
No, I'll read one.
One?
I want to give
So
it one.
Russell keeps a running list. Anytime I say anything to him that he finds worthy of his documenting, he writes it down.
It's called Nina's favorite lines. Okay, so one is little context. I was traveling. Nina said she missed me. I call her. FaceTime decline. I write it down. FaceTime decline. I text. I called you. I know. I'm busy. I said I missed you, but I didn't say I wanted to talk to you. I'm just confused. Like, who says that? Like, what do you mean? I thought you missed me. So you just missed what? You don't want to talk to me.
No, I miss you.
Literally, your words. I said I missed you, but I did not say I wanted to talk to you.
I could have been in the middle of something. I could have been in
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, who says that?
So,
like, who says that?
Russell, this is what he does. You can miss someone and not be in a position to want to talk.
I was calling. But I did not say I wanted to talk to you.
So this is what he has a whole list of crazy things in his phone. Nina-isms.
I have them.
I feel like, here, let me see it. I'm not going to read any. I just want to see it.
No, you will see them. I'll have a
What
time.
do you want? Like, why are you saving them?
Don't worry.
It's so weird. I promise you guys, I don't know what I'm thinking when I say certain things like that. It just comes out that way. I tend to not pay attention a ton when my kids and Russell are talking to me a lot of the time. This is a terrible, terrible habit of mine, and I'm working on it. It's my 2026 New Year's resolution. Let's get into our next clip. Our next guest is nothing less than relatable. Actually, this may have been the most relatable episode for any parent out there all season long. Boundaries and the importance of community became a reoccurring theme on the show this year, and Dr. Raquel Martin did not shy away from going deep on these topics. She dropped gems on mental health, boundaries, and the importance of taking care of our mind the same way you care for your body. She broke things down in such a real, accessible way, especially the idea of rules versus boundaries. It was one of those conversations where you feel seen and heard, and here's the moment that really stuck with me.
This younger generation, when I work with them, they block people so quick. It'll make
on all the devices, on all the social media. You got to go on this one and TikTok.
And I'm just I'd be like, wait a minute now. No, this is a healthy conflict now. Now, this isn't, you gotta rein that in. And they I'm sticking to my boundaries. And I'm like, I didn't tell you that. Who told you that? I didn't tell you that in session. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh my gosh. For example, forever. Did you see the show Forever?
That was very realistic. Whoever they had in that
blocking
room,
I could not help. I was so pained by the amount of blocking that was happening in
whoever
Forever.
they had in their writing room was accurate. Because I'm like, yep, that's what they do. They be like, oh, I'm out. It's gonna be enough. But you mentioned this like it was a couple of days. It was one of your posts. It was like, people have an issue with conflict, and it's right, but like they don't even know that it's not, conflict isn't the issue, it's poor conflict resolution, right?
Yes.
Because you're going to have conflicts, right? You want people to help you grow and stuff. So I would say that actually helps with, if you're getting pushback when it comes to the boundaries, one thing you need to understand is you should kind of, it's change, right? Like, so one, make sure you're setting a boundary and not a rule. A boundary guides your behavior. A rule attempts to dictate someone else's. That's as clear as day. As someone who has been in school forever, bachelor's, 2 masters, doctorate, thousands of hours. The way that people describe boundaries, 80% of the time, unless you listen into Nedra Glover Tawwab, they got it wrong. A boundary guides your behavior. A rule attempts to dictate someone else. So first, identify whether or not you're trying to work on a boundary when it comes to your behavior or a rule, because there might be pushback to both. And the reason why it's important to know the difference is because someone can violate a rule and your boundary will still stay firm, right? The rule could be, don't scream at me. The boundary can be, when I feel disrespected, I remove myself from the situation. The person screams at you, rule is violated. You feel disrespected, you pick up your body and you move, right? So I would say first, are you doing a boundary or a rule? 2, figure out what the conflict is when it comes down to it, right? Like, do they not understand where it's coming from? Do they just want to wish you harm? Is this a relationship that needs to evolve and be downgraded as well? Are they being unreasonable? Can you have a conversation about it? And then you have to decide if this is a relationship you want to continue. Now, there's many times where these are relationships where it's just like, well, I can't cut off my child, but like, people will be like, get rid of everything that stresses you out. And it's like, well, I gave birth to them. So I think that, they call people on individuals who do that. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's like, what? Because it's true.
No, this is no, but I'm laughing because I'm just thinking about all the ways I try to uphold my little boundaries with my kids, and like, children are the hardest little people to try
they karate chop them joints out.
They don't care. Yeah, they don't care about your boundaries, but you still can't get rid of them. They don't even have social media. I can't block them.
Yeah,
like they don't even have social media. So
my husband Brandon has found me in the pantry. And then all I heard was, "Nah, she's not down here either," and he shut the door. You know what I'm saying? Like.
My conversation with A'ja Wilson was one of the most epic conversations of the season. Fresh off of her WNBA championship and racking up her 4th MVP award, it's no wonder Time Magazine named her Woman of the Year. She is so sweet. She's such a lovely human. I really appreciate her honesty and the genuine and authentic nature in which she lives her life. I'm not surprised that she has found the success that she has, and I could not be more excited for her. She talked about pressure, peace, and what it really means to be human behind all the accomplishments. Her vulnerability and honesty were unmatched, and it's clear that A'ja is the real deal both on and off the court, something that you can't fake in today's world. Let's take a look at that clip. You cannot fake the funk when it comes to people connecting with you for who you are. And people are very savvy. Like they know if what you're saying is a bunch of BS or you are being genuine. And the fact that your signature shoe came out this year and sold out in 3 minutes is a testament to who you are. Forget the shoe. The shoe is amazing. Yeah. But for me, I believe that what that signifies is how incredible of a person you are and how many people love and adore you for who you are and the trail that you're blazing. So kudos to you, because that's incredible. Let's talk a little bit about it. Like, how involved were you in the process of designing your signature shoe?
Very involved. Probably too involved. But it's my first shoot. Like I had to. I was like, I'm not about to let anybody mess this up because you only get one first shoe. So I needed to make it perfect. But I also enjoyed the fact that like my Nike team just really brought my vision to life. Because I may not know all the technical terms, but I knew what I wanted, and I knew the mindset and the feel that I wanted behind the shoe. Obviously, because it took a very, very long time, and it was overdue, and I'm just like, hey, we're here now, so we're not going to mess it up. Like this is going to be my baby, and we're going to cherish that. And I was so glad that I was able to partner the adult shoe with the kid shoe, because that really was just a big moment for me to do, because I love the youth. I love them. I love how pure their hearts are. And I wanted them to be a part of the release as well. So I'm so happy that Nike was able to do that and bring it all together. And it was a shoe for everybody. It was a shoe for the culture. It was a shoe that I think we always say it was probably one of the most anticipated shoes in a while. I mean, we had people lined up like back in the day waiting for the shoe to drop, like at pop-ups all over the country. So it was a blessing. But yeah, I was in those meetings, and we had meetings where we had to crumple the sheet up and start over. We had meetings when we were like, okay, love it, let's move on. So I love the experience. I'm excited for it to continue. But yeah, it was nerve-wracking. It's hard to sell. I was scared about a pink. I was like, oh, does everybody like pink? I like pink.
Yes.
But it sold. So I was like, oh yes, pink, we're good.
Oh, guys, my chat with Kennedy Ryan brought me so many belly laughs. She's truly unique. It was my first time chatting with her, and it was over Zoom. So I typically like to get a good grasp on things and personalities and connect a little bit beforehand. But with Kennedy, she got right in there, and I could not stop laughing. She's such a talent, and she's so genuine and so real, and it was really refreshing. She gave us a beautiful reminder about love, both on the page and in real life. We talked about empathy, artistry, and the stories that bring people together. Her perspective on storytelling and representation was so powerful and has moved her audience in ways she didn't see coming. Let's revisit that moment.
I've had so many women say, I was listening to Can't Get Enough, and by chapter 3 or by the end of the book, I'd broken up with my boyfriend. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm not trying to break up happy homes. You know, what's going on? And they're like, no, but I realized I was settling. I realized that I was in this relationship because I thought I couldn't do any better, or because I thought that no one would love me. And seeing a woman who is being loved properly made me realize, oh, I'm settling for this because I think there's no one else.
Wow.
And it's so funny when people say that, because I'm like, I wasn't thinking that would be
Not my intention.
a side effect, a byproduct. My assistant was like, girl, I got to chapter 3 and I broke up with my boyfriend. I was like, oh, wait. I wasn't thinking that was going to happen. She's like, no, honey, he was. And I was like, okay.
It needed to happen.
Right.
It
She
needed to
knew.
happen.
That's the thing. She knew. You know what I mean? It's like these people who are telling me this is not like they were out, like, oh my gosh, I'm ecstatic in this relationship and it's giving me everything I need. No, they were in relationships that were stale, or that were not serving them, or that weren't centering or esteeming them. And they already knew that. And seeing it depicted, even fictionally, told them, okay, yeah, no, I it's nowhere near that. I don't get this at all. And so
It was just the last little.
yes,
I
nudge.
always say, like, I'm always looking for a sign.
Yes.
And I trust and believe that, everything happens the way that it's meant to happen. And I do not see everything as coincidence. I'm always searching for meaning and purpose. And
Yes.
people are finding purpose to break up with their boyfriends that are no good for them from your book. And I think that's wonderful.
High five. I celebrate. I've
You're
talked
getting
about
the assist.
a lot of irritated boyfriends.
I know. Can't Get Enough is getting the assist for a bunch of breakups and that need to happen. During this season, I also launched my mental wellness app, Levy, and had the privilege of having my co-founder, Sharndre Kushor, on the show. I speak to Sharndre all the time, especially during the launch. I feel like we could not stop speaking to each other. There was so much to go over while we were building Nebby. And I learned so many new things about her during our episode, especially her family's ties to Nelson Mandela. If you missed it, go back and watch the full episode. It's pretty unique and interesting. She shared how she built an organization that's helping women all over the world find their voice and their purpose. I loved how she talked about redefining leadership with empathy and intention. Let's take a look at that clip of Sharndre. A lot of times when we talk about our journey and we talk about like our past and we're kind of given our little spiel or a little intro, we don't talk about high school. Like nobody talks about high school. But you were literally in high school when you were founding the now billion-dollar tech company, Crimson Education. So you need to talk about your high school experience like that. You were literally a teenager, which is still mind-blowing to me. But it's wonderful to hear your full circle story, and you've accomplished so much, and you're so young, and you have like a whole future ahead of you. And I talk to you like you are a child because you make me feel like a much older person sometimes. But it's really great to hear your story. It's so beautiful. So with that being said, can you share a little bit about how our partnership came to be? Because it was a little bit of a whirlwind. I think without that one missing piece or that one missing human, then maybe it would have been a little bit different of a pathway. But can you share with everyone what drew you to the space and how we kind of connected?
Yeah, it was absolutely a whirlwind. And it was kind of one of those experiences that I look back on and I'm like, if I ever question whether there's fate, then this is my reminder that there is, because, us meeting was exactly that. So I spent a bunch of time in the US last year, about 3 months at the start of the year. And one of my closest friends is a wonderful human who lives in New Zealand now, but used to live in the US. And for the longest time, she had told me these beautiful stories about living in the US and Oklahoma and, how wonderful her time there was. And her time there was wonderful for many reasons, but the most important reason was the people that she met. And I keep hearing about this wonderful woman called Nina who, was so kind and, so ambitious to do amazing things for the world. And Nina and I had never met, but one of my closest friends had always kind of talked about her. And then I was in the US and I was staying at a this beautiful apartment in LA. And there was a shared space downstairs where residents from the building could go and spend time. Like it was just like a giant lounge area. And I remember being down there, and there was someone who was sitting down there, and they had the Do Tell card game, and I was like so amazed because my friend had just told me a little bit about Nina and what she was doing now and the Do Tell card game, and I was like, oh my god, this is wild. And so I learned a little bit more about kind of all the things that Nina was doing and how much impact there was and intention there was behind like all of the parts of her ecosystem. And we ended up connecting just to talk about, the impact that she was trying to create through the community she was building and all of the projects that she had going on, which, is a lot. There's so much there. And that's really kind of how our conversation started around, what it means to build not just community, but an engaged community that we can add value to in an impactful way over a really long period of time. So, it was a wonderful, really kind of crazy experience that, just unfolded by itself. But here we are.
I know. I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like I was in a space where I knew, and it was a goal of mine, to create something in technology that could help people. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know anything about the tech industry at the time, but something that kept coming up and recurring for me was this call of action almost from within the mental health community to evolve and to grow and to create new avenues of tools and wellness tools and things that we could use and give to our communities and help people navigate their mental health and wellness. Sinead Bovell pushed us to think about the future, technology, AI, and how humanity fits into all of it. She offered incredible insight around how technology is impacting human connection and what we should be looking out for. Honestly, I was totally geeking out over having her on the podcast because at the time I was working on In Quiet Still building Nebby. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this amazing futurist on the podcast. She knows all about AI and technology. I want to pick her brain and get to know everything. At the time, I didn't even mention it because it was still so early in the process. But looking back at the moment, it's just one of the things I remember the most is like, I get to talk to Sinead Bovell, and it was such a geeky moment for me. What I loved most was how she made such a complex topic feel personal and deeply connected to our everyday relationships. Let's go back to that conversation with Sinead. What do you think human connection will look like in 10 years from now?
Yeah, I'd say this is particularly concerning for me because you have this rise of this loneliness epidemic, and then it's going to converge with artificial intelligence. And these systems are being intentionally designed to feel human. And so to give you this kind of superficial connection to something. So there's going to be this convergence, and it's kind of at the least optimal time. I mean, some of the fastest, the most downloaded apps in the App Store lately have been AI girlfriends for young boys and for young men.
Wow.
And to kind of fill the void and the need for connection and with something that's always on, always available. There's no friction. You don't have to return empathy. And so this, I think AI is coming in at a time when if we're not really careful and intentional about the boundaries we put on it, how it's designed, if we don't have psychologists, psychiatrists in these conversations, we'll move towards a world where people are downloading addictions in the App Store. And that, to me, is really problematic. And yeah, in terms of the loneliness, I think, yeah, with this kind of artificial intimacy and this kind of connection but at a distance, we're more connected than ever before, but more lonely than ever before. And with kids in particular, or young people in particular that are on these apps, you're also exposed to severe amounts of crises and panic and fear. And that's somewhat intentional by platforms because they're optimized, the algorithms are optimized for engagement. And enraging content tends to make people come back and engage more on platforms.
Wow.
So you're disproportionately exposed to things that are going to enrage you, polarized content. And that makes you feel less optimistic and less hopeful about the world around you. And there's that, the saying, if you can make something trend, you can make it true. And the things that tend to trend are more viral, polarizing content. So it's all of these factors that show us a world that we think is going down a really bad direction at disproportionate rates than all of the solutions that are coming to play. This less need to connect with people in the physical world because we feel like we're constantly surrounded by people, but it's these kind of digital connections and then technology underscoring all of that. I don't think any of this is unsolvable, though. I mean, the data is there about the amount of time you spend on social media and the correlation with mental health. And I think we can hopefully see that, especially with children, spending more time connecting with a chatbot than a person probably won't end well. So I think the data is pretty obvious and what we need to do is pretty obvious, but are we going to make the right decisions about it? And that makes me hopeful and a bit worried because the problems are within our control, all of them. They're not, matters of physics. There's no asteroid coming out. These are just choices. But are we going to collectively make them?
Right. My conversation with Victoria Hutchins set such a powerful tone for this season. It was our first time in our new studio, and she opened up about identity, resilience, and what it means to show up fully as yourself, even when the world doesn't always make space for that. Victoria's honesty reminded us that healing isn't linear and that vulnerability can be the strongest form of strength. She spoke about how your true self will always come calling out, whether we like it or not. Let's take a look at that moment.
With anything that in your gut to be true, whether it's that you're emotionally not in a relationship anymore, you know you're not straight, or there's just like some burning truth inside you, it is going to come out. You know, like you really can't run from yourself forever. You can't run from your truth forever. And so
Right.
something I'm learning, like the older I get, is that I'm either going to, you know, do it while I'm scared, tell the truth, move in the scary direction, or it's going to kind of like burst out of me like vomit or like a zombie like clawing its way out of me. You know what I mean? Like that's a really gross example to compare it to vomit, but like the truth
We
comes
get the
out.
point, though.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? The truth is going to come
And
out. So
sometimes it does come out like that. It
no,
comes out ugly. It comes out clawing. It comes out scrappy. It's not always beautiful and amazing, but I feel like that's the perfect analogy, honestly.
you get
I
it.
like
Yeah.
to kind of think about that even from the flip side in our relationships and how we can show up and be the main character in that if we choose who we want to be and we say, this is how I want to show up in my relationships. This is the type of relationship that I want. And this is who I want to be. I'm giving main character energy. And this is the main character that I want to represent. And then choose the relationships with people based on who allows you to do you and live out that narrative, right? So kind of working backwards, which a lot of people always start from the other. And we start in a relationship and we go through these different changes in our lives and we decide what we want to do. And maybe we want to shift careers or whatever the case may be. And we're just hoping that the person that we're with is willing to come along the journey with us rather than saying, here's what I want to do, here's who I am. Is this person going to fit into my journey and allow me to be the person I want to be?
Yes. And we do it in so many different ways. We do it in small ways and big ways. And I think it's something like in my 20s, I was 100% the girl that tried to be who I thought you would like, you know? 100%. And it's abandonment of yourself, number one. It also doesn't work. Like it will, who you actually are will come out. They will find out your dirty little secrets, that your personality isn't what you are putting it out to be. It's not even going to work. So there's that. But I think that's like such a common thing that we all do. And it's something that I still like, how many times will the universe have to teach me that I can't like cram myself in a box that I don't fit in forever? It's like, oh, we have to learn that on a continuous loop in many different ways. But yes, the temptation to do that in relationships, especially I think like when you're still like really actively figuring yourself out, is so real.
Our next guest, Melody Ehsani, single-handedly helped to further my addiction with Erewhon smoothies when she brought this vanilla matcha smoothie into our recording session. She let me have some, and I feel like for at least 3 months straight, I was ordering a vanilla matcha smoothie from Erewhon every single day, which I'm blaming her for that addiction. Melody Ehsani is always going to bring perspective, and this time she talked about creativity, spirituality, and even courage to live life by your own design. I walked away from that conversation feeling inspired to trust my instincts a little bit more, especially around what I commit myself to as a busy mom and entrepreneur. Melody's take on how motherhood changed her creative process was fascinating. Here's one of the moments that really captures her energy. So much has changed. What do you think is like the biggest change or the one thing that you approach differently that you can directly tie back to motherhood and your journey to becoming a mom?
Oof. I think there's so many things. It's hard to answer one, but I think the biggest thing is maybe how much more preference I have now. Like before, I feel like I used to say yes to a lot more. I used to be a lot more like, sure, I'll do that. I'll try that. And now I have this clarity about my time and how I want to use it and my energy, because my child takes up so much of my energy that I only do the things that I absolutely want to do or love to do, or the things that I know will give energy back to me, because I literally don't have the resources to do otherwise. And so if it's not benefiting me or my child or my life in some way, I'm not even willing to really go there. Whereas before I used to convince myself that I could, and now there's no like convincing myself of that.
I think that's really great. And I feel like so many of us kind of experience that, where I feel like you just become more comfortable saying no.
Yeah.
And also, like, children take up so much time. Latham Thomas gave us a masterclass in wellness, boundaries, and feminine power. What you didn't see is the beautiful necklace that she gave me off camera, which I am so grateful for. Her work with Mama Glow is incredibly valuable, and she has reminded all of us to honor our bodies and our energy, especially when the world keeps asking us for more. This conversation made me rethink what balance really means. Let's go back and take a look at that moment with Latham.
One thing that's so interesting at the time that we live in is that, you know, information is everywhere. And in a sense, it seems like information is free, but energy is not. And so it's like, if you have to give of yourself, anything that you do that is sharing your gifts unto the world has inherent value. And there always has to be an energy exchange, right? And so I always think that when you give in a way that you don't feel properly compensated, or when the exchange isn't matched, we always feel like less full, and like we don't feel in our power, you know?
Absolutely.
And so I think that it's an opportunity to like really use our voices and say, like, this is the rate that allows me to show up for you fully. And if it's not this, then, like, you know, I won't be able to do it, or I won't be able to show up in the way that, you know, you desire. And I think we have to do this with like friendships. And there's people who are like, yo, my friend does this, and they'll literally like loan out our services for free to people who, right? Like, people do
I've
that
had
all
that
the
happen
time.
before.
And you're like, hello, no, I do this, you know, for a living, but also you should want to invest in what I'm building and not expect that like I would pour into other people without being compensated. So I think that it is a lesson that so many of us have to learn around boundaries, I feel like. And I certainly had like my fair share of experiences like this that were so challenging. And but I've learned how to circumvent. And then the ones that are more challenging too, I feel like having like a barrier, you know, like whether you funnel people to a more formal space. So like, say someone's texting you like, hey girl, hey, you know, can I get the hookup? Being like, you know, I would love to support you. Please email my office or whatever. And then take them out of that overfamiliar space into a formalized space where then you can have that conversation that's more professional.
Right.
You know, so I feel like those are some of the ways that we can start to like protect ourselves in ways that people aren't looking out for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really good feedback. Tamron Hall brought her signature truth and confidence to Do Tell. This was such a treat for me because I got to visit her in her studio on the Tamron Hall show previously, and now it was her turn to come pay me a visit in mine. She shared how she's navigating motherhood, career, and purpose, all while staying grounded in who she is, which I love. I loved how she spoke about how she supports her son in different ways, like the way they walked in backwards into her party, which she shared was a moment that she had never shared before. I love having these breakthrough moments on our show, and you guys getting to get a really good look and insight into people's actual lives and mindsets. Here's the moment from that episode.
You know, I'll tell you one day, and I've never told anyone this because I'm very, very sensitive about what I share about my son because it's his life to share. But I will tell you, we went to a birthday party once and my son was terrified to go in. And I've shared that part of the story. What I didn't share ever before was he said, can I turn my back and walk in backwards? I burst into tears inside. Like,
Oh.
because you want your kid to come, look, I'm Tamron Hall, we're gonna walk in here, we're brave, and I kept the whole car right there. I was like, you've got this, we're gonna walk in the party, it's gonna be great. And it's your friends are waiting. And he said he was excited. The minute we got out of the car, got closer to the door, he was like, and he could see his friends and he wanted to go in, but he had an overwhelming sense of doubt, I guess it would be, that he could go in, and I don't know. I wish I could understand it. And he said, can I turn around and walk in without facing anyone? My whole life, I just thought, okay, great. People are going, why is he walking? And I said, yes, you can. You sure can.
Yes.
You sure can. And I said, do you want me to walk backwards? Or he goes, no, because you need to see so we don't bump into anything. I said, okay.
Practical.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I said, okay. So he walked, and we walked the 3 steps it took to get. It was in one of those big gym play things. It was already overwhelming. People jumping and I walk in, he reversed in, sat on the bench. You got to take your shoes off. When I tell you I couldn't get the kid out of the party, like it was time to go. And I'm like, it's time to go. And he and his friends are now jumping and running. He just needed that little beat to collect himself.
And he needed you
Yes.
to be his comfort.
Yes.
And make sure he knows that, if you want to walk into this party backwards, then let's make it happen.
Exactly.
And I want to say, like, just from my own personal experience, there have been many times where I wanted to sneak into a party and sneak out.
Right.
So who knows that feeling will ever change for him. But I really love, that's a wonderful story. Thanks for sharing it. One of my favorite moments with our guest, Brooke DeVard, was literally her being all the things that she says she is, coming into the studio, pumping. She had just had her daughter at the time. And it was hilarious. We were just sitting here listening to her little pump go, like make that little, no, I'm not even going to try to recreate that noise. But outside of bringing motherhood into the workspace and carving out her own lane, she brought so much intention to our conversation. We talked about creativity, motherhood, and all the amazing things that she's been working on. She shared how she's built community through storytelling and why it's so important to create from a place of authenticity. Love that. We touched on the topic of beauty standards and how families consistently affirm our beauty and worth at home. Let's take a look at that moment with Brooke. I'm just interested to know, like, their beauty trends are constantly changing, and we're both brown girls, Black girls, and the beauty, like in the world of beauty, I don't have to explain to you, but there isn't always a space for us. And so I feel like, how do you, or have you ever had to overcome that your own, or have you ever questioned your own self-image? And have you ever struggled with feeling like you had to conform to certain beauty standards? And then how did you navigate that?
Such a good question. In terms of having to conform to other beauty standards, remarkably, it wasn't something I struggled with. And it's remarkable considering how I grew up. So I went to an all-girls private school on the Upper East Side. There were no when I joined the class, I was the first Black girl to join the class. Very few Black women in that space, in those formative years, middle school, high school, where you're really like coming into your own and you have notions about what's beautiful. But I think it's because my parents worked so hard at affirming for me at home what Black beauty was. We always had Essence magazine on the table. I always played with Black Barbies. I say that my mom and my grandmother were my first beauty icons. I always understood that Black was something that was beautiful. And I think because my parents knew the environment I was going to be in, they offset it.
Right.
So they were like, we're not throwing you into the deep end without teaching you how to swim. So we're going to equip you for this environment where some people may think that you are less than, where you may not be the standard of beauty, and at home, make sure that you understand that you absolutely are. So I really credit my parents, my mother, my grandmother, the women I had around me with making sure that that wasn't something I had to struggle with.
Right. That's really, really interesting because I feel like we kind of had a similar upbringing. I went to predominantly white schools when I was growing up, and I always felt like my dad and my brothers, I didn't have a big support system of women around me, but I had 3 brothers, and I had my dad and I had my mom. So we were kind of the minority in the group, the women. And when I tell you how sick I used to be of my dad telling me how amazing I was all the time.
No, but it's so important, right?
It's so important, because when you have that sense of self and that confidence, it doesn't really matter what room you go into, what anyone looks like, or if you feel like you have a community within that space. You kind of learn to navigate and connect with people on a deeper level, and just knowing always how important you are. So that's really good, and I credit my family to that.
Yes,
to making sure. To instill that in me also. My conversation with Neha Ruch felt deeply, deeply personal, because I feel as though she was speaking directly to me. I was hosting her on my podcast, but I feel like what I was really seeking at that time and during that conversation was some personal clarity, and her ability to create space and calmness and just like a positive energy really showed true, because I think it was one of my more personal episodes that I filmed this season. She reminded us that ambition and motherhood don't have to compete, and that they can actually complement each other. We talked about identity shifts, letting go of comparison, and redefining what fulfillment looks like. Her idea of a power pause used to reframe what stay-at-home motherhood actually looks like is empowering and unique. I loved her perspective on how we can stay fulfilled without fear of judgment. Let's take a look at that moment from our conversation.
What you said is that it's hard in our culture to take our foot off the gas. Because in some ways it makes us question our ambition, it makes us question our feminism, it makes us question our worth in our relationships. So, that's really what this is about. I think, in my own experience, I had been climbing the corporate ladder for a long time. I had sort of checked all the outward boxes. I'd graduated from Stanford Business School. I'd landed in my dream job. And then I had my first child. And by the way, I will say that I'd spent the better part of my life looking for belonging. And I think I'd found that in work to some degree. I'd found, like so many of us do, so much self-worth in that, so much pride in it. And then I had my first son. And I don't think this experience happens for everyone right then. It's other moments. But for me, in those sort of wee hours of the morning, I found the sense of belonging that I'd been looking. So the power pause was after the years of me sort of navigating that gray area of the in-between of stay-at-home and working mother, and then the full pause to grow alongside my kids. It was the language I needed to reframe stay-at-home motherhood, right? This idea of we can shift away from our paid work to focus our energy and our time and our family, our health, elder care, child care. But in doing so, we can actually discover new interests, new skills, new connections, and it'll actually shape us into who we're meant to be and a stronger version of who we are.
That is something that I think we all need to hear, just even as moms and even dads or caretakers or whoever. I think that is such a powerful message. And I love the idea that power is in the name, because I think, former First Lady Michelle Obama was just talking about taking her own version of a power pause, right? And choosing her and her needs and making decisions based on the things that were important to her, right? And everyone saw it. She spoke about it in a recent podcast. Everyone saw it as like there must be some traumatic or dramatic thing happening in her life just because she was choosing to take a step back and do the things that made her happy for once in her life. And I feel like that is such a common story that so many of us experience. And I think as women, we often feel like we have to justify stepping back or taking a different path. You guys, I had so much fun filming with Etienne Maurice. I was a little nervous at first because we started at the crack of dawn, literally boogers still in our eyes at this point. And I'm like, how are we going to bring the energy? I was determined to have a really good episode for you all. And he came into that room bright as the sun and ready to go. He was such a trooper. And he's like one of those people, you know, there's a very few people in the world. And when you come across them, you instantly feel like you know them, like you guys are really good friends and go way back. He's like that. And I hope that you got that warmth from our conversation. His story is one of purpose and passion. He opened up about activism, family legacy, and building community and a space for expression through storytelling and movement. This was one of those conversations that sticks with you long after it's over. Here's a moment from my chat with Etienne.
Once I got shot and once the DUI happened, I think that was the wake-up call. Because even after the DUI happened, I was still smoking and drinking until once I got shot, I was like, all right, now I really got to stop. And then I started to develop this like phobia around smoking and drinking because I always felt like something bad was going to happen if I even engaged in this act. And so I think it took me a while to kind of understand like where this behavior came from. And I started to really develop these bad habits. Even thinking so far, even reflecting so far back into high school, you know, I was sneaking out the house. I was smoking and drinking. Those like at 16, 17 years old, especially in LA, and having, you know, some type of social status. I feel like a lot of that got to my head, and I was developing these patterns and these habits early on. And it was difficult for me to navigate that. It really, really was, because also my mom being who she is, she's always...
You probably felt the pressure.
Yeah,
right?
definitely was feeling the pressure a lot. And it was very hard for me to let go and develop my own healing practice. And I don't even think I had the vocabulary of what healing looked like outside of going to church or going to a child's therapist. But even when I went to a child's therapist in high school, you know, she didn't look like me. She was an old white woman. God bless her, Dr. Leader. But like, you know, I don't think that I really had the tools at a young age. But now, as a 33-year-old man, I have those tools that I can pass down to the next generation and say, hey, I'm telling you, this works. This is something that can actively help you. And so I really try to implement what I know works, what I've learned in the last 5 years of building Walk Good to the next generation so that they have the tools that I didn't have.
I had a truly heartwarming conversation with Ron Robinson. I think he thought he was coming here to talk about beauty and beauty stat and all the trends, but we got deeply personal, and probably it was so rewarding to me to see him open up about some of the things from his past that impacted and really had a big stamp on his journey. He brought so much wisdom to the table. He shared his journey from corporate beauty to becoming a founder, and that he's learned about perseverance, innovation, and staying curious no matter how successful you become. I especially love how Ron got started in the beauty industry amidst uncertainty and how he navigated family pressures to be successful, because there's so many of us who can relate to that. Maybe we choose a different path and we don't do the thing that everyone expects us to do. And that is definitely tends to be the road that's a little bit more difficult to travel, because there's so much pressure and there's so much resistance from the people that we love. Let's go back to that clip with Ron.
I experienced family pressure to go to medical school. So my parents are from the Caribbean, and back then they emigrated here in the 1950s from the Caribbean, Barbados specifically. And at that time, that generation believed in two professions. You were either a doctor or a lawyer. So me and my brothers tended to do really well in sciences. Two of my brothers ended up going pre-med, going to med school and becoming medical doctors. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So
Are you the youngest?
I'm second to the youngest.
Okay.
So
You're the middle child.
Yes, kind of the middle child. And my younger brother ended up becoming a medical doctor as well. So I have an older brother and a younger brother, medical doctors. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up going to med school, hated it, realized it wasn't for me. And this was the tough decision, having to decide to drop out, move back in with my parents, and face their disapproval and their real anger towards me disappointing them. And that was very, very tough. I felt a lot of shame about that. And I knew I had to get a job, and then I ended up sending out resumes, and Clinique hired me as a cosmetic chemist back in 1990.
Wow.
And that's where I fell in love with beauty and realized that there was this whole world of formulating and developing products and making people happy. Going back to my mom for a minute, after I was at Clinique for 1 year, I brought home a bag of skincare products that I was developing. And she was so excited, so thrilled, and so happy to get those products from me. I was immediately redeemed. I was immediately forgiven. And she ended up loving the fact that I became a cosmetic chemist. So it really turned out to be a really beautiful thing in terms of me finding what I wanted to do with my life and also seeing her joy and approval of me, finally.
I really loved my conversation with Amber Lyon. She was so vulnerable and open and honest, and I felt all of her energy even through the screen. I love talking to people who do similar work that I do because I feel like I always get to leave those conversations with my own cup filled. Not only am I trying to seek all this knowledge and wisdom for you, but I'm also doing it for myself. So this conversation was really fun. Amber Lyon was one of the most honest and layered moments of the season. She opened up about choosing herself after years of chasing validation and how real growth comes from slowing down, setting boundaries, and listening to your own needs. We talked about self-worth, healing, and what it takes to rewrite your own story. Here's a moment from that conversation that really stuck with me. You talk a lot about the younger you, which I think is so important. And it's really good because when you, to me, self-reflection is key to finding clarity and figuring out how you want to move forward. But you talk a lot about the younger you who was just out here doing her best with the tools that she had, right? And when you look back now, what was a limiting belief that you kind of inherited or a pattern that you didn't realize you were carrying? And how did it shape the way you moved through the world?
Oof. To pick one, that's the difficult part of this question.
I know.
When you go to the doctors and it's like you have your, your health history, I'm
a laundry list
of the limiting beliefs. Yeah. Gosh. I mean, I think I'll just pick from the top, right? The one that comes to mind from that question, and I think really it caused the most negative outcomes and consequences for me, which was the fact that I just didn't believe in myself or my worth in the world. And I inherited that in some ways because I saw that growing up. And that's very, a challenging thing to see, my mother not necessarily really standing in her worth as a woman. And I say that with such a tender heart because I love her so dearly and it's no fault of her own, but the ways in which, you're watching and constantly absorbing that model for who you're going to be in the world. And then seeing my father who was, struggling and losing his fight with addiction, to me, that really was not standing in his worth as a male, as a father figure, as an archetype for our family. And so I think it really impacted me in the sense that I had these big ideas and these big visions for what I wanted to create, but there was this fundamental gap and the self-belief that I could ever make any of those things possible. So it was really this dichotomy for a lot of my teenage years and my early 20s and feeling depressed in that space, right? If you have somewhere you want to go and you fundamentally believe you'll never be able to get the tickets to go there, it's quite a disheartening experience. And so it's really been such a beautiful journey to build that worth and to perhaps not even build, but to discover the worth that was always there. And that's a lot of the work that I do, I think, in my writing and with clients. It really, when I boil it down, is worth work.
Our next guest, I don't know I know exactly what it was, actually. It was so nostalgic for me speaking to our next guest because my favorite movie growing up was Parent Trap. And when I tell you I've seen that movie, it has to be hundreds of times. And her voice brought all the nostalgia back. And I was just truly obsessed with not only her voice and her being in her little flat in England, but also how kind and gentle, but real and loving that she was towards me and during our recording. So it's one of the things that I really remember the most. Helen Marie opened up about resilience, self-discovery, and what it takes to rebuild after life throws you a curveball. I loved her openness, her ideas on boundaries and community building, and how she channeled her life experiences into strength. Let's revisit that conversation. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about this idea floating around. I think you're the perfect person to kind of share your thoughts on this, that this generation is too self-focused. Like it's all about me. I feel like there's this really big push between the collective, like what's the greater, what should we do for the greater good, or what's collectively best for all of us versus choosing yourself. And do you think that people misunderstand that and what it really means to choose yourself and see that as something being selfish? How do you think that we can kind of care for ourselves and still show up for our community at the same time?
Yeah, I think that's such a brilliant question. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot in my own recent podcasts, actually, and I'm noticing it a lot within my community, that we're becoming incredibly self-focused and boundaried. And everything's around boundaries, which I'm not saying shouldn't be there, but I think the language has become incredibly stiff. You can see my body language. I'm like, oh, I want to loosen up, And what I really feel, Nina, is by becoming so self-focused, I think people are actually finding that they're not finding happiness. And I'm doing all this work. I'm doing everything that they tell me to do. Why don't I feel happy, content? Because the missing piece of the puzzle is co-regulation. And by co-regulation, I mean being with other people, other safe nervous systems. We're losing the art of connection. We're losing how to be with other people because we're so focused on ourselves. It's almost gone too far. And I remember a story recently. I know, and I love that you're nodding your head at me. You don't think I've gone crazy here, but I remember a story recently where someone said they'd become so boundaried with their partner. The partner said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore because there's so many rules. We lose that flow of, we need to learn what it's like, coming back to rupture, what it's like to come up against maybe a little bit of friction with another human, but how we mend that friction, how we hold space for it, learn from it, check in with the other. We can't just turn away every time there's a little bit of friction or someone's crossed the boundary. I'm not talking about boundaries where there needs to be a boundary. I'm talking about general self-care work.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's about social media, not something that is incredibly, you need to protect yourself. So I think we're losing that art of connection, of maybe getting something wrong, and then working through that with another person, another safe nervous system, we're becoming too isolated. And although my book was called Choose You, it was actually choose you too. Choose yourself like you would a friend. And I think that people are just taking it to extreme and are then becoming incredibly isolated, Nina. And we need community to heal. We need community to feel compassion, empathy, to feel fulfilled. We do need other people.
I found a new friendship coach in our next guest, Trinity Mitchell, who shared her story with so much heart. Her ideas on friendship are unique and powerful. I particularly loved this idea of self-sufficient friends. We talked about entrepreneurship, purpose, and the courage it takes to bet on yourself. Her journey is such a powerful reminder that you can redefine success at any stage. Let's go back to that moment with Trinity. I think a lot of people, when you don't have that self-sufficient piece, because when you say self-sufficient, to me, it sounds like you're saying just someone who knows themselves and someone who is confident in who they are and their place and position in your life. So the self-sufficient piece of that to me sounds a lot like that. But there's so many of us who don't have that in our friendships. And we have maybe friendships that have lasted for years and years. And maybe they're not so self-sufficient. Maybe they require a little too much of us. How do you navigate those challenging relationships that that you want to maintain, that you want to have, but they're taking too much and asking too much and really creating a lot of conflict in your life? Because maybe they aren't so constructive or with their criticism, or maybe their criticisms aren't coming from a secure place, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I've learned that everybody isn't for everything. You know, like, I categorize my friend.
I love that. I categorize my friends.
Like, you know, there are people that I'll pick up the phone and like, I'm really having a hard day, you know, because I realize they have the wisdom to help me navigate whatever that hard thing is, whether it's marriage, whether it's motherhood, whether it's finances, or like whatever, because I'm like my life has evolved so fast into like, I'm like a whole businesswoman over here, like, can somebody help me, save me, right? So you got friends for things, you know, like that, of course, and then you have friends it's like great for like brunch, and you got, you know, you guys kiki, you have a good time, but the depth, not because you don't trust them, but because maybe they don't have the capacity for that type of thing where it's accountability being shared. You know what I mean? And I think some things just come with, like I said, like time and letting things grow organically. But I'm very honest with people. Like, if I don't want to be your friend, I don't do anything to make you believe I want to be your friend.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't have draining relationships. I used to because I would be nice instead of just being kind.
This season, we had our very first Thruples conversation on Do Tell Relationship Podcast. It happened to be some of my really good friends. I really enjoyed this conversation because it's fun to see them in a space where they're being professional, but also I'm so privy to their relationship dynamics. So like looking at the side eyes in between answers and making sure each other are on point and not spilling too much tea was my favorite part. My good friends Molly Shaheen and Huw Collins visited the show, and they brought such lighthearted honesty to their episode. We talked about love, partnership, and what it's really like building life together in the spotlight. Their chemistry made this one of the most fun conversations of the season. Let's take a look.
Ooh.
That's an ominous ooh.
Sometimes I ask you this and you like won't answer, and it's very annoying.
Well,
so now you
have
to.
That's even more ominous.
The day.
If I don't answer in private, I'm like pretty sure this is not the forum. But okay, go on.
Let's do it.
What is your favorite thing about being in a relationship with me, and why?
Oh my! I'm so happy.
Same.
Let's hear it, Huw.
Let's have it.
Okay.
Use all those big words.
You know I will. I think from when I recall, although it's hard to recall now, a time before our relationship. I think my favorite thing about our relationship, like its impact on like my life, if I look upon it singularly, is that I genuinely think I have become a better version of myself as a result of our relationship. I think, I think every great relationship has the ability to like help you see yourself better and in a better light, and shine a light sometimes on things that you maybe haven't given enough attention to. And I think collectively, I think we really have like rounded out a lot of each other's edges. You still have a few to go, but it's okay.
Unreal. You were doing great, Huw. Unreal.
I had to throw it in. And I think that I really love how we have helped each other develop as people. And like, you know, you say it all the time, you know, I think you're someone who likes fun a bit more than I like fun. I think
I definitely
I've become a bit more fun. I don't think I'm like the most fun person on the planet, but I think that like, you know, I think that I feel like I have more permission to like be the truest version of myself. And I think that is a kind of like a testament to your flexibility within the relationship to allow that. I think that's like a thing that doesn't often happen. I think it's like something that I really am grateful for. And I think, you know, I think it is one of the best parts of like our relationship.
In the spirit of switching things up for today's episode, we don't have a guest to play Do Tell card game with. So I thought that I would choose questions for myself, for you guys. So here we go. My lovely producer chose 3 cards, and I guess I get to pick myself which one I want to do. Okay, this one's good. What advice would you give your younger self? I think that I would tell my younger self just to be a lot more kind to me. And just to be confident and patient and know that your efforts are always going to be rewarded. You have to just work hard and worry less. Everything that's meant to be for you is going to be for you, and everything that's not isn't, and that's okay. I guess that's it. Do Tell card game. Thank you so much for tuning in all year long. If you loved any of these moments and want to dive a little bit deeper, all the links are in the description. I think you'll find new inspiration, motivation, and learn more about yourself that you didn't know before. Remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen, and follow us on socials. It's been a privilege to share this space with you, and I will see you back in the new year with new episodes, new guests, new conversations, and new moments just like these.